If you're a regular Classics World viewer, you'll recognise Simon, editor of Classics Monthly magazine and owner of various classics that he's run as projects for the magazine. But all this time, he's had another project car, more for him personally, that spiralled from a light recommission into a full restoration. So we paid Simon another visit to learn a little bit more about his 1970 MG Midget. Before we get started, courtesy of our friends at Teng Tools, you can win this 26-piece combination spanner set worth over £330. And one runner-up wins this 6-piece screwdriver set worth over £50. So click the link in the description to enter before the competition closes on November 30th.
Right, well, was looking for a project, fancied an MG. I've had BGTs in the past. I had use of a Midget years ago when I was working on other magazines, and always liked them. Saw this one for sale. It was in the Car Club magazine. It was in that dangerous territory where it was cheap enough to pull you in. Would have been better off following the advice you give everyone and buy the best you can afford, but it's easy to give advice and not so easy to follow it. Drove really nicely, had some bodywork issues, decided to go for it. Had one owner since it was about 3 or 4 years old, so I knew all the history from him, and I can't even remember, about 2,500 maybe. Took a chance and drove it back from Gloucester.
So how did things escalate into such a massive project?
They started off with the optimistic intention of sorting out one of the sills, just tidying it up a little bit, and then perhaps coming back the next year and doing the other one. What had happened, and what often happens, is it gets repaired over the years. The sill gets rusty, you get one welded over the top. And you could see on the front, nothing lined up on it. The sills were out, the doors were all wonky, the gaps on the doors were closing up and in and out. And we could see fiberglass in the wheel arch where the sill joined it, so we knew it was a little bit nasty. And it's like any project, don't start digging around unless you're willing to commit and go all the way, because once you do, you will find more. It's like the little kid's song, isn't it? You know, the ankle bone's connected to the shin bone, connected to the knee bone. You can't do one little bit of bodywork in isolation, because it's always going to be connected to the next bit. And there's nothing worse than doing one bit to perfection and then having to take it all off again to do the next one. As your standards rise on one bit, you want more from the rest. So whereas you thought, oh, I can live with that and drive it around like that, once you get one bit looking good, the next bit looks even worse, and it goes on, and turned into a little bit of a, I wouldn't say nightmare, but it was certainly a much bigger job than I'd intended. So Alan does the bodywork for me. He had the shell down there, so I had some of the mechanical components back here and could work on them. The suspension, the brakes, all of that, gathering parts, cleaning rust off, cleaning muck, grime, old paint, and then just painting on black for the suspension components and stuff like that, where it doesn't have to be done to a professional standard. The springs, the dampers, the kingpins were all great, but the wishbones had started to rust inside where the bushes go. But once you knew it was there, then you needed new wishbones. It ran well and it sounded great, and it was good. It's the original engine, which is why, as you'll see, it's a light green colour, because for 3 or 4 years they used that, and it's quite an unusual one. I handed it off to the engineering shop to check all the measurements and everything. It had +10 on the bearings, and the crank was brilliant, just polished up and absolutely fine, so we put new bearings in. Pistons were standard size, but we went one overboard because one of the pistons had started to melt a little bit. The cam had a very small nick on it, just one lobe, and it was so annoying because the followers were fine, the cam could have been reused, but having done everything else, it just didn't seem worth it, so we did all that. And it helped that I didn't have a deadline that it had to be done by. I was working ahead for the magazine, because you'd come out, you could spend 3 hours and get so far, and then realise that you've got to take everything back out because you've done something in the wrong order and now you can't get to the other bit. Instead of getting angry, you just got to go in, have a cup of tea, close the garage up and say, I'll do it tomorrow. When it came back, well, I had it all painted on the outside, but I hadn't done the inside or the underneath. So I had to spend a lot of time underneath scraping it back and then painting it and then spraying it with stone chip. And there's nothing enjoyable about that job, but looking at what you've done kind of makes it worthwhile. Every job is really satisfying when it's finished. We are very close to finishing now. I've got the seats, I've got some webbing to put under there, I've kitted out all the interior, I'm waiting for a little cup on the gear stick before I can put that in, and that's pretty much finished. The bonnet's not on there, as you can see. We're obviously waiting until the engine's all running. Turned it over last week, so we know it's all turning, it's free, nothing's clashing. It was almost catching, but not quite. And I think it's the chokes in the carbs that there's something in there, they're not pulling down enough. So if you're up for it, then we can give it a go today, make it a bit richer, and we'll just see if it will fire up. If it doesn't, the next job is get the car up to the garage where they did the engine, leave it with them, get it running. That's actually the most nerve-wracking stage now, because it's nearly finished. The next job is take it out on the road, and that's when you see what you've done wrong and whether it's as good as you hope. And we always hope you turn the key first time, starts up, off you drive into the sunset having a great time. It doesn't generally work like that. You normally get a snagging list about a mile long. But other little things, yeah, there'll be things to get right. And hopefully by the end of the summer, we'll get a bit of sunshine and enjoy it.
Yes, hoping. Should we give it a go?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Excellent.
Yep, give it a go.
Right, ready?
Yep. No, it's not even trying, so we won't push it.
Sadly, it wasn't to be on the day we filmed, but since then Simon's made further progress with the interior and other little jobs. We've had word that the engine's since been coaxed into life, so check out Classics Monthly magazine and get subscribed to the channel for future updates on this fantastic little midget.